Well, we are back here again, where it seems as if some officials have different versions of what is going on. You wonder what I'm talking about, right? Well, on Friday, the lights went out during the ANC gala dinner in Limpopo. The president was addressing those in attendance a day before the January 8 statement celebrations. This is not the first time we've heard different voices from officials. In July, there were contradictions whether the scenes of looting and destruction of property were an insurrection or looting or something else. Now, ANC Treasurer-General Paul Mashatile told the media outside in Limpopo that the power tripped, while the president says there was nothing sinister. But the police minister's version alludes to a sabotage. So which exactly is it? Let's now look at the impact of this mixed messaging with the CEO of Decode Communications, Lorato Tshenkeng. Lorato, before we start our conversation, I'd like for the viewers to get a sense of what I'm talking about and get to hear what the president said to our political editor, Mzwandile Mbeje, as well as what the police minister had to say to journalists.
I don't believe there's anything sinister, to be quite honest, and it is power that failed, and with the failing of that power, the security people around myself and the deputy president felt that it is best that we should depart. And fortunately, it happened right at the end of my speech. So I was able to finish my speech.
But you were not able to eat?
Well, eating was not the most important thing. It's never really the most important thing. So once that had happened, the deputy president and myself were whisked away, and that was the end. But I'm glad that I did spend time with the guests, and I was able to speak to them and thank them for their presence there. And I think the party continued. People do not need the president to be there for them to party. So I think they did go ahead and party.
As I've said, answer the question. When they went to the box, somebody had indeed interfered with the plug that only deals with the lights in that hall. The whole place had lights, even the speakers, which means the plugs themselves were working. Police then can't just come and give what happened without investigating. We're investigating that, and we're very hopeful that we're on the right direction.
So the ANC president was sabotaged again yesterday?
Well, sabotage, that can be the term if you want to use it, but somebody did interfere with the system.
Lorato, sabotage, if that is the term, if you want to use it, there's nothing sinister. I'm glad it happened at the end of my speech. The deputy president said we should leave. This mixed messaging is not helping, is it?
Good evening, Bongiwe, and good evening to your viewers. Unfortunately, the ANC once again finds itself in a very, very interesting predicament, right? Where we know the January 8 statement, as part of their tradition, is one of those key and significant events that ought to set the agenda for the governing party, but also create messaging around some of their biggest things that they want to be looking at in the year going forward. And of course, when you then have an event, or firstly, even you remember the event on Thursday that was organized by the Women's League, the president had to be whisked away. And of course, the claim was that it was COVID-19 regulations, where, if you remember, just before the elections, the president was seen in many events where he would be interacting with residents, with citizens, where you could see that the compliance of COVID was not at its best. So besides the July unrest, we have seen this almost continuous kind of mixed messaging. What is most unfortunate is that the president has this approach, Bongiwe, where sometimes he wants to come across as, someone who is about, showing calm in how he deals with issues of leadership. But we all know that in any crisis, right, you ought to, speak with some sort of clarity. And when he then speaks before the minister who's responsible for anything that is crime and intelligence, or at least crime intelligence related, in my view, I think the president spoke a little bit out of turn. But what is worrisome is that this seems to be some sort of a thing that the ANC does on a regular, or at least once too many times.
Does it surprise you, though, to have to hear all these different voices? I'm taking you back to the July unrest. You remember at some point there will be a briefing, and then when we're listening to the briefing, the police minister will say, I don't know what intelligence reports you're talking about. And then the state security minister will say, but we handed over an intelligence report. And then the president addresses the nation and says it was an insurrection. And then you then hear the defense minister saying, I'm not sure if there was an insurrection. There was no evidence that points to an insurrection. And then a lot of people were saying at the time, this was showing cracks in the security cluster because they were not speaking in one voice and pulling in different directions. I wonder what this latest installment tells us.
I think, honestly, it is unsurprising. We know that the ANC is a party at war with itself, with clear divisions for all of us to see, right? But what we all expect as South Africans is that at a governance level, we expect an ANC that should be acting cohesively and their plans should be coordinated and communicated coherently. And what we now saw with firstly the president's, or at least firstly it was the Treasurer-General Mashatile, who really wanted to deal with the perceptions, right? That there was no sabotage. And then again, the president, that interview with Mzwai, saying that he does not believe anything is sinister. It is unsurprising precisely because we know that the ANC is dealing with a number of perception and reputation damaging issues. So when you think about why Mashatile or Paul Mashatile would want to deal with it that way, it is because they have many problems, including the issue of not paying staff members on time, right? So hence the need to manage perceptions in that way. From the presidency point of view, as I've indicated, he has always tried to come across as somebody who demonstrates some sort of calm in how he leads things when there's a crisis and the likes. But unfortunately, it then gets his comms team in a fix, because ordinarily under any crisis, Bongi, the plan always ought to be, we anticipate scenarios and we say, in the case of, and in this case, should there be a power outage and the president has to be whisked away, what is going to be our message? Something that is almost becoming clear and coming across to South Africans is that there seems to be that lag in terms of appropriate and the right kind of planning in anticipating the crises that may arise.
Listening to what you're saying, then it sounds like the message for those that it is intended for may find it as potentially a system that is out of control, or a situation that government is not in control of, and thus then speaking in different voices. Talk to us about the impact that it has on the people that this message is intended for, and then the repercussions thereof.
The biggest challenge, Bongiwe, is that, we know that we are now in the second year since the lockdown. In sometime in March, it will be commemorating the second anniversary since we have been locked down due to COVID-19, right? We know that our economy is in the doldrums. There are, the unemployment rate is at its highest, and there are many challenges, including poverty, right? And with all those challenges, you then do not want, or at least need, a president and his cabinet to be speaking, almost past each other, because one, that compromises trust, right? And we know that trust is at an all-time low as a result of deepening, poverty, issues of corruption, maladministration, and many other things that the government does not seem to be having its finger on the pulse. But secondly, the confidence in the state. If you are an ordinary citizen, and what you are getting the sense that the number one and the number two citizens in the country could actually be sabotaged to the point where their safety is compromised in a small venue like that, what about me from a from a crime prevention point of view by my local police station and the likes? So the confidence, the citizens continue to have lack of confidence in the state. And when you have that, Bongiwe, you will then take us back to July last year, where you remember citizens were rising up to say we'll protect our own properties. Of course, then we saw a lot of vigilantism, and unfortunately, then it means that we're taking away the rule of law when those kinds of things come. So that's the real impact of mixed messaging from those that ought to always, communicate with clarity, always have a coherent messaging when they talk to us, but most importantly, continue to restore confidence in South Africans and build trust.
I know you talk about scenario planning, but if tonight you can get a call from the ANC and say, how do you suggest we fix it? What would you say?
One of the biggest challenges dealing with politicians is that I know that they will only be calling me because, they know that they are in trouble, right? But the biggest challenge is that politicians don't listen, Bongi. There are people who are a little bit more expedient in how they deal with things. But suppose they were to listen, right? The first thing would be anything that is done, any decision that is made by the government, and including the governing party. And I'm saying the governing party because if you think about it, the Gen 8 statement talks to, the government programs and the like. So at least there's going to be some alignment there, right? It would be always, we need to be thinking about what are the communication implications of the decisions that we make, right? Because clearly there would be desired outcomes that we have. And if wrong decisions are made, communicators should be able to implore on politicians to say the implications of wrong decisions are 1, 2, 3, and 4. If we desire that we want to build a capable state is not only built by professionals and experts who know what they are doing. It is also built by communication that restores that kind of confidence. And unfortunately, when you don't consider the communication implications of the decisions that you make, and you don't review your decisions based on that, you are then likely to always be here where the ANC finds itself, or at least as the governing party finds itself.
All right. Thank you so much for your insights there. It does look like there might be a bit of work that needs to be done in this area. That was CEO of Decode Communications, Lorato Tshenkeng.